Hello guys, and welcome to a new series we're going to start here. The series is going to be called the Evolution of Sound series in correlation with our Evolution of Sound project that I have running with a few YouTubers. A few of them are FL Studio RMK, Jesus Mechan, Kesade. And pretty much we're all pretty much make tutorials on YouTube teaching you guys how to make sounds, remakes, and technical stuff. So if you guys want to check out other great tutorials, make sure to check those guys out from the Evolution of Sound team. We made the Evolution of Sound to help producers come up, but at the same time we're trying to give you guys the tools necessary in order to create the music you have in your head and hopefully make it a little bit more easier. So in the Evolution of Sound, I'm going to be starting series where we're going to talk a little bit more technical, more than hands-on, where we create a sound and we just go through everything. So today we're going to be looking at the Reveal Sound Spire synthesizer. I'm Sendrolled, and I'm going to be going through all the parameters, hopefully just the basic ones, and we'll get into it eventually. So if you're a beginner to synthesis, this video is for you. If you're a beginner into Spire, this video is for you. I'm going to try and pretty much do a chapter, so I'll make sure to post it in the description, like what I talk about from minute 1 to minute 2 and so forth, okay? So let's get started. So as soon as you open Spire, what happens is you are pretty much greeted by the factory bank. You're going to have 128 sounds able to make in a bank. I'm going to do is just going to initialize it. So we have an initial bank. So now we have 128 banks. So if you're into making sound banks, then this is for you. You can go to select bank now. So first thing is first, let's get into the oscillator section. And in Spire, we're going to have 4 oscillators, just like we do in Silent 1. And each 4 oscillators are going to be able to tweak a certain parameters individually for each oscillator. The first 3 boxes you see here outline. So we have our pretty much our oscillator section, our detunement, and pretty much our our parameters on stereo field. That's what I like to call it, because wide controls how wide your sound is and so forth. But we'll get into that right now. So we're going to be using oscillator 1 right now. So first off, you're going to see a note, a fine tune, a control A, control B, a phase, and wavetable mix. So I'm going to explain what these things do. So note, pretty much you're kind of changing the note you're going to be playing. So let's say you play a G. When you turn this down, the synthesizers, you're telling the synthesizer to play 2 notes down from the G. And generally when you use notes is because you're going to be creating some sort of sound that is layered with harmony. So usually +3 note, +5, +7. A lot of the tech house use +5 note to create that kind of tech house feel. But if you really don't know much about harmony, then just leave it at 0. You can still get the same results by playing it in your keyboard, but this does it for you. Next, we have the fine focus knob, which is pretty much a smaller change in pitch than your note. Whenever you're going through notes on your keyboard, you're changing the pitch of the sound, and pretty much pitch is what creates those sounds you hear. So if I were to play a G, you're gonna hear that, and then a higher pitch would be like a sharp. That's a higher version, so it's pitched higher. So that's the way I see it, and it's a great analogy to go by. So the fine focus is a little bit more, smaller change than your note. Note it's a little bit bigger, and your fine is going to be smaller. The best way I can explain this is I'm very sure you guys are familiar with Massive. In Massive, you have this little one here. This is going to be like your fine focus, and then this big one's going to be like your note. So pretty much that's what we're going for. So now we have these two. Now we have an octave section here. Best way to explain an octave, and this is really for beginners, is if you were to play a G here, if you were to play this an octave higher, then this G would move up here, and pretty much you just have the G at a higher octave. So whenever you put in the synth up an octave, when you play this G here, let's just say you play this one, the synthesizer is going to automatically play this one up here. So pretty much whenever you use octaves up and down, usually it's just, for personal use. Let's say you make a bass, you want it to kind of stay here. You don't want to go all the way down here to G0. So you put it down to here, and then whenever you play that G, now it's going to sound lower than what it would have if you would have just left it by itself. See, low, but back at 0, and so forth. Okay, and then in Spire, we have a thing here called Control A, Control B. So if you go on here, you just see classic noise, FM, AM sync, and SAW PWM. So generally, most of the sounds I make stay in classic, but sometimes I would delve into noise, FM, and AM sync. So we're going to stick with classic right now. In classic mode, you have a standard SAW. Whenever you have, by default, you're going to have SAW. Control A is going to control the parameter of how much of a square you want to turn that SAW into. So if I were to turn the Control A all the way to the right, we're going to have a square. And then Control B is going to control the length of this line here, where it's located. So to the left, to the right, sorry, we're gonna turn this into a Q pulse, I believe, type wave that you would see in Silent 1. So if you were to go to Silent 1, and I'm trying to relate these to you, since you guys would see, here we have a normal square. This is like your Control A in Spire turned all the way to the right, and Control B in the center. So here we have a square, which is called a pulse wave here. So here you can see the pictures are pretty much the same. So when we will go to the left, we're going to turn this into this wave right here. Sorry, a Q pulse type. And then if we go to the other way, Inspire, we're going to turn this into the other one. So Control B, whenever you have a square and you do that, you kind of make the sound a little bit more Dutchy. It's not as you know, squarish. Hard to explain, but it sounds a little bit more Dutchy. If you were to hear it in the center. Oops, we're playing the wrong one. Here we have a square. And you would just put the glide on. So that's pretty much what it's doing. So Control B is going to control that. Control A is going to control the square, how much of a square you want in your saw. So we put that back to 0 and we have our saw back. Okay, so in Spire, we're also going to have what we call wavetable synthesis, and this is present and massive. When you guys go into your oscillator section, you can choose between all these wavetables. In Spire, it's a little bit different because you can mix the saw in with anything almost from your wavetable. So here we have sine, tri-sine, and so forth. All these wavetables are variants of the waves we already have, but they each have their own characteristics. Like the vocals will sound a little bit more brighter than, let's say, the bass and so forth. So this gives you a lot more creativity whenever you're creating your sound, so you don't sound the same like everyone else. So you might create a super saw and say, oh, I don't want it to sound like, I want it to have a layer that sounds different. You can go with a synth or a guitar and then, you know, use that and see if that works. So whenever you're changing here, you have your wavetable mix. If I were to have a sine, pretty much all the way to the right, it will be completely a sine wave, which you'll hear there. In the center, you'll have half saw, half sine, which is going to add like a subby type bass to your saw. Oops. And then pretty much that completes the oscillator section. We'll get into phasing later because it's a little bit more advanced. It's a little bit harder to explain. So for now, just understand that this is what this does. Now we're going to go into the second section, which is our detunement section and our density. Just like in Silent 1, you have our detunement section. You're going to have it in Spire as well. But you have another knob called the density knob, which kind of controls the density of the detunement. So if you were to detune here, and let's put this at 8 voices, you're going to hear that. Let's put the volume up. When we put the density up, the detunement is increased more drastically. As you can hear. So that's pretty much where your density knob is. Technically, I haven't read the manual for Spire, but I tend to go by it by ear. So, you know, eventually you realize what these knobs start doing. Next, underneath the attunement and density, we have Unison Mode, where you can choose between 1, 8 voices, and so forth. The reason it's called Unison, it's if you guys have heard the word unite, so unite means together. So Unison Mode, pretty much what it's saying is that you're choosing how many voices are going to be playing together. So pretty much, in other words, whenever you choose 4 voices, you're playing 4 saws. Whenever you choose 8 voices, you're playing 8 saws from this oscillator. 9 voices and so forth. So pretty much this is what it does. Then below the voices section, we have what we have: an octave, 2 octave, 3 octave. And pretty much what this is stating is that whenever you put this at 2 octaves, pretty much when you play a note, like let's say a G, the high G is going to play at the same time as well. So we put it at 1, you lose the top layer. Put it at 2, 3, you can hear that top. So Spire automatically is going to play that top note for you whenever you put it in those modes. And then here we have the C minor chord, which is just if you play a G, it's going to play the C minor chord with it. Let's put it back. Okay, finally we go into the third one, which is going to end the oscillator section. So each individually, oscillator 2 will have different parameters in these 3 boxes in oscillator 1 if you choose to have it that way. So in oscillator 1, we have the whiteness. Pretty much the wider you put it, the more you're going to hear in your sides. If you're wearing headphones, it'll be so drastic you'll hear it. So It controls how wide your sound is, and technically, a good state of mind is whenever you write white sounds as like pads and stuff like that, or you have a super saw lead, you want to keep at least some stuff mono, or else your sound isn't going to punch as hard. If you're trying to make like a drop lead, you keep your wide as low as possible. So wideness is going to control the stereo field. It's going to widen the sound up a bit more. Panning, I'm sure many of you guys know, you just pan it to the left. You can only hear it in the left ear and so forth. And then here we have filter input, which you can route the sound to 2 filters. So usually I just keep it at 1 and I use the filters from here. Next we have the key button, and pretty much when you turn the key off, you can only play 1 note. If you try to go up the scale, it's not gonna change in pitch. So you're just gonna have 1 pitch set standard. And this is perfect to use in correlation with the noise, because then you can change the noises parameters. As in, you turn the key off, you can add what frequency you want your noises with Control A, and Control B is going to control the resonance of the noise. So if you ever want to add like to your super saw some white noise, this is the way you do it. You go into the noise settings, you turn the key off, and then you pretty much Control A controls how of a high pass or low pass. You can choose between both, or you can have a band pass as well, I believe. Actually, don't quote me on that, I think it's wrong. But here we have a low pass, and then we go all the way to the left, we have a high pass. And then Control B is going to control the resonance, which is this part here, and it's just going to kind of, make it stand out, the last point before the filter closes. All right, so let's put this back to the way we had it at Classic. Okay, so that's going to be the oscillator section for Spire. Next, we have the filter section, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of filters. We have the acetyl type filters, which are great for acid type sounds when you use the resonance and you use it in correlation with an envelope. And then we have just simple, red LP4, low pass and so forth filters. Pretty much a low pass filter. Whenever you see LP, that means low pass. We use an auto filter here. Low pass is this type of filter where you pretty much get rid of the highs first, and then as you keep closing the filter, the last thing you're going to hear is your lows. So I always explain it as putting a hand over your mouth, and the last thing, mostly what you hear is going to be your low, the lower frequency parts of your voice. So as you can see right now, you can only hear the low. Take the hand off, you can hear my highs now. So that's what that's doing. And then when you see HP stands for high pass, so it's just the opposite of that. So you're gonna get rid of the lows first, and the last things you'll hear are the high frequencies. So I can't really do that with covering my mouth. I can just talk in higher pitch like that, so that's what a high pass is gonna do. And then we have the band pass. Why did I do that? And a band pass is a correlation of both, and it's great for Dutchy type sounds, as you can see. So pretty much it's a unique way of getting certain sounds out. But I know that a lot of Dutchy producers use the bandpass because you can get really crisp sounds with it. Okay, so pretty much you're going to see mostly that in your filters. And pretty much the different types is just, Perfecto could stand for maybe the Virus TI filters, emulating that. And then maybe Scorpio can emulate like Moog type filters and so forth. So that's up to you guys to find out by your own. But pretty much LP2 is just saying the type of filter. LP2 will not take as much away as LP4 and so forth. So an LP4 will cover more, and LP2 will let out a lot more and not cover as much. So that's what's going on there. So here we have cut 1, which is just a cutoff filter. All the way to the right will be open with a low pass. All the way to the left will be open with a high pass and so forth. And you can just say the opposite. This is the filter close for low pass, and this is the filter close for high pass. Resonance, like I explained, is going to control pretty much this point of your filter here. It's going to add pretty much, it's going to make it stand out that point before the filter closes that last frequency it was in. So as you can see, you're going to get it high. And then we have key track, which all the way to the right, what it's going to do is when you play the higher keys, it's going to add a little bit more brightness or open up the filter, as I like to say. And all the way to the left, it's going to do the opposite, where all the low keys will open up. Okay, and it's a little bit hard to explain that, but if you guys do it, use it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Next, we have the effects section in Spire. The effects section, we have a shaper, which you can call a distortion unit. That's what I like to call it. You're going to have different types of distortions, a lot of them, to be honest. You have the hard clipper, a soft, and a warm type distortion. You have tubes, which it's going to be kind of like, running it through like a compressing tube. We have every try, which I don't really know what they stand for, but you can get neat things with these. And pretty much here you have your dry and wet, so how much of your sound is being routed into this effect, and then the drive is going to decide how much of the drive from this, distortion is going to be added. We have the bit rate, which lowers bit rate, just like going from hearing PlayStation 2 music to hearing Super Nintendo music. The bit rate will change. Low cut and high cut affect the distortion. So if, let's say, you have a lot of that white hissing noise, you'll apply a high cut like this and lower it so you can cover that. So then we go into the phase where we're going to be having pretty much 9 stages. 9 type of phases. We have the vol, high, mid, low. Each one reacts a different way. I can't really explain how they work, but it's something you do by ear. But a little tip with the vol, low, mid, and high is you have a frequency knob, and pretty much you want to put that frequency knob somewhere where you want this kind of phase of vowel high to come in. So there you'll hear we're controlling the frequency that phase is coming in. And then the rate's going to control how fast it's moving. So let's make it higher. Is there a filter on this or something? Oh yeah, auto filter. There you go. So we put a phase. And we put a vowel mid. And then vowel low. And so then the rate controls how fast it moves, as you heard. Rah, 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 rah. So it's a cool effect. Then we have the chorus section, which is a simple chorus. Can't really explain it right now to you guys. Delay, which is pretty much, the normal standard delay you guys get. And then we have 2 types of reverbs. In the reverb section, we have the dry and wet, which is pretty much works the same way for all of these. It just decides how much of the sound is being routed into here. Pre-delay is going to decide how long the reverb takes for it to kick in. So we have the dry and wet all the way up. There, I click the note. It takes a while for it to come. Let's see here. Let's put the pre-delay up, watch. And then the reverb comes in. So pre-delay decides how long it takes for the reverb to just come out. Well, while dampness controls dampness of the reverb. Which I like to say, like, the higher the dampness, the more muddy it's going to sound, because it's getting covered. And your colors are going to decide what frequency the reverb's going to be in. So higher frequencies will let higher reverb out. Color. So if we have it all the way up, you won't hear it. So it decides what frequency the reverb comes out in. And then our decay decides how long it sticks around for. So it sticks around for a while. And then our Y decides the stereo field of the reverb. So if you have the reverb here, you're going to hear that reverb in the center. And now we put it all the way to the right. There you hear it. So that's pretty much that section. Now we're going to the envelope section, where we have attack, decay, sustain, and release, and then SLT and SSL, which are in correlation with the sustain. And I'll explain those again in a future tutorial because they're a little bit more advanced than your standard ADSR. But you don't really need to use them to achieve results. I rarely use them, to be honest. I don't even touch them. I just stick with what I kind of know, which is ADSR. Attack, decay, sustain, and release. They work the same way here as in any other synthesizer. Attack is going to decide how fast your sound is going to come out, since if it's routed to an amp, let's just say, attack decides how long it's going to take for it to come out. As you can see, it takes a while for it to come out. At the bottom, it comes out instantly at max volume. Sustain is going to decide the max volume here. And if you have lower sustain, you can see the value now. Okay. And then our decay is going to decide how fast it takes for attack to go to the sustain level. So usually when you have your sustain all the way up, you can't really tell. But if you have our decay here, you can hear it. How long it takes. So the higher, the more longer it takes to go back down to the sustain level. Goes down in volume to sustain level. And then our release decides how long the sound sticks around for. Wait. And whenever you put a high release, it's good to use for transy type sounds and super sauce. So, and then we're going to get into all of those in another video. So for now, we're just going to look at the last section of Spire, which is here. And pretty much here we have a compressor. So you can see as soon as I put it on, it starts compressing. We have a velocity knob, so to the right. What that means is the harder you press in your keyboard, if it has aftertouch, the more velocity is going to require to get the full amount of sound. So this is a knob to kind of add sort of that feeling. So if I were to put the velocity here, barely touching it, and I have to press down. I have to press down hard to get the full sound out. So velocity you want to turn it, if you want, you know, velocity control, you turn it on, and this is going to say how much you need to have it, how hard you need to press a key in order to get the full amount. And then finally, we have a volume standard knob. And then we have an EQ with a low shelf, which is going to just increase anything, all the lows from this frequency on to the back. We have a mid, which is just controlling, you know, a little bit more specific. Quadrant controls how much is going to be boosted, as you can see. And then your high is going to be, you know, a high shelf, which is the opposite of a low shelf. And then your Q is going to decide that resonance point here where, you know, the sound's going to come out before it's getting, you know, taken out. So hopefully this video was kind of helpful, guys. In the next video, we're going to get into the mode, different types of modes. Voices, which I already explained, but there's another voices here, which is very simple. We're going to get into the LFO section, the stepping section, and the ARP, and the matrix, which is something that confused me at first, but then once I found out what it did, it was really simple. Anyways, guys, this has been the Evolution of Sound episode 1, Spire Basics, and I'll see you guys next time.